welcome to Make Kind Loud, conversations that turn up the volume. Today we are talking to Sue Vicory. Hey, Sue, how are you?
Hey, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Thank you for saying yes. I'm excited to chat with you about all the things.
There's a lot.
First, I'm going to read your bio, and then we're just going to jump into it. Okay. Sue Vicory has been a film director, writer, producer, and executive producer for the past 18 years. She created Heartland Films, Inc., a 501c3 in 2003 to create films which inspire and educate. Her first documentary film, Homelessness and the Power of One, premiered in 2005, screened from coast to coast, won multiple awards, and raised $200,000 for shelters. Sue's second film, Kansas City Jazz and Blues, Past, Present, and Future, a feature documentary, aired on PBS. She is a 3-time Telly award-winning filmmaker. She has spoken on panels around the world, including both Sundance Film Festival and Cannes Film Festival. She is a member of the Alliance of Women Directors. She's been married for 42 years to her college sweetheart, raised 2 creative daughters, and is now a grandmother. Sue and her husband traveled through all 48 states in 2016 with Casey, their golden retriever, in a My Power of One brand-wrapped RV while completing 12 acts of kindness in all 4 corners of the United States. She is an advocate for women creators worldwide. Sue, that is absolutely amazing.
Wow.
I love that.
That's the most expressive bio read I've ever heard. That was wonderful. Thank you. That's fantastic.
I want to know all the things. I want to know everything.
Oh, my Lord.
Starting your film company to everything. So let's start from the beginning.
Let's start sort of from the beginning. When our girls went off to college, some people set up a sewing room in the extra bedroom. And then there was me who said, who do I want to be the second half of my life? And within an hour, I was signed up to film school in New York City.
Oh, wow.
So it was back in the day, that many years ago, that I said, well, maybe I want to be a documentary filmmaker. So I Googled documentary filmmaker, and 10,000 hits came up, on the internet. The very top hit was New York Film Academy. I thought, I love New York. Let me check that out. So I go to their site, and they had a 1-week boot camp that was sponsored by AMC, who headquarters in Kansas City, where I was living. And I thought, I could take 1 week off work. And it was in the fall of that year. It was 2002. And I thought, I love the fall in New York City. That would just be perfect. So I signed up. And this is like in the spring of 2002. It's like March or April. So here I am within an hour of my asking myself this question. I have freaking signed up to film school in an hour. So I do that. And then I e-blast everybody I know, and I say, you won't believe what I just did. And probably not too many surprises, really. But as we got closer to the October date, we get into, say, August, September. And at that point, I owe half of my tuition. I've paid half and I owe the other half. And I start having human doubt. And I'm like, is this stupid? Is this a waste of money? Is this, should I really go forward with this? So I send my daughters an email and say, do you think this is just the craziest thing ever? And my oldest daughter wrote back and said, Mom, go for it.
I love that.
I always choke up when I say that. But anyway, so I paid my tuition and off I go to film school at 48. I'm 48 years old, by the way. I go to film school to New York City, and I'm in a class of about 5 students. I think there's 2 women and 3 men, or 3 women and 2 men. I can't remember. And within 1 week, we had to learn to make a 3-minute non-dialogue 16mm film in New York City. In 1 week, we had to figure out the steps, how to do it, we had to write a script. We checked out all our equipment. We're taking the subway around New York City. Right. And we had to edit a film in 1 week. And I did. So it was called the anniversary dinner, and it happened to be the week of my anniversary that I was out there, so it was appropriately named. And then my husband flew in, and we screened it. You know, they screened it for the students and stuff, and so here I am. I've made a 3-minute film, and it was a pretty big hook. It was quite the hook for me. And I came back to Kansas City, and I'm like, now I need to learn how to edit. So I signed up for editing school in DC, and I went out to take a 3-day workshop for avid editing. I became a certified editor. I came home. I said to myself, do I want to buy a car, or do I want to set up an editing suite in my home? And it turned out, because back in the day, you had a whole room full of editing material, you know, equipment.
Right.
So I set up an editing suite in the loft of our house, because our girls are off to college now. And so instead of having a sewing room, I now have an editing suite in my home. So at this point, we're 9 months into Sue's midlife decision. And so I say to myself, well, you know, I've gone to film school, I've gone to editing school, I've set up an editing suite. I guess I better make a film. And so I'm 9 months, a year into this like first conversation. So I say, what should I make a film about? I'm asking myself these personal questions. And again, within a minute, I said to myself, well, what about the homeless community? What about homeless women? What about homeless women?
Yeah.
And logically, I said to myself, the reason I decided that was because I had done a lot of urban volunteer work. I knew some of the executive directors of the shelters. I thought, well, this should be an easy beginning, easy conversation. In hindsight, what it turned out to be was something much bigger than that. But that was my logical self saying that. So I called up one of the executive directors. I said, can we have dinner together? And she said, sure. So we had dinner, and I said, I've got this idea. Maybe I'll make a film about women, homeless women. She says, bring it on. So okay, now I guess I got to get started. So I basically rallied up some friends and said, do you want to be my crew? And first of all, I went to Barnes and Noble, because I didn't know anything about making, you know, what's the vocabulary, what are the stages? Right. And I bought some books, and, you know, and I just had to really learn from scratch like everybody else. So the very first set of interviews I did was at a shelter in Kansas City called Restart. And I went down there, and we had set up 4 or 5 interviews, had to drive 45 minutes to get down there. And I got all down there, and I had a couple of friends from my crew. And the homeless, whatever, was sitting there, and I forgot my mics. So I had a camera set up, everything, and no mic. So I had to turn around, drive 45 minutes back, get the mics, drive 45 minutes back to set up for my first interviews. And so lots of snafus like that. But it did take me 3 years to make the film. And we traveled through 15 cities. And we did Harlem to Skid Row across the country. And basically set out and met our nation's homeless. And I'd never in my 40 some years known a homeless person, met a homeless person, had any reason to be connected to homeless people. But I sat under bridges, under bushes, in parks and shelters and the like from coast to coast. We filmed in Washington, D.C. We filmed in Las Vegas and Portland, Seattle, and Santa Monica. And you know, it was a never ending journey, really. And I took it on really like this is a long answer to your question, but I took it on like
it's very interesting.
Took it on like a thesis, or like, you know, like that kind of thing. And I started reading books. I read the Mole People about homeless that live under New York City, and I just started really absorbing and exploring and researching it. And it turned out to be just the most extraordinary experience, because what I felt like when I met the homeless was I felt I had met humanity. So as I sat with the women in the shelters and I listened to their stories, and people said to me, and before I started, they said, oh, they won't talk to you. They said, they won't talk to you. And I'm like, well, who is they? Who are they talking about? Who's they? And my experience was the opposite, was when I went in to sit with the women or sit with in the parks or wherever, they couldn't stop talking. They shared their story, and I felt like I was looking in the eyes of humanity. So the connection for me, the transformation for me was extraordinary. So in Sue fashion, I then wrote a script. I had original music created for the film, 4 original songs. We had it scored. I had the post-production done out in Washington, D.C., which is where I took my editing class. And the most remarkable thing, well, there's many remarkable things, but one was we started to plan the premiere September 10th of 2005, and we set the date like in March. We put together an advisory team. We set the date in March for September 10th. And I figured if I did that, I would force myself to finish the film. You know, it would give me an end point to work backwards and actually show up with the film in the end. So the thing that was so amazing was 10 days before the film premiered, I was in DC sitting with my editor, and Katrina was stirring up.
Yeah.
And Katrina stirred up big, obviously, and hit, you know, New Orleans. And during my post-production, so by the time we premiered the film in 2005, Katrina had devastated our country. The word homelessness was on the lips around the world.
Right.
So we had standing room only at our premiere. We had to put up 2 screens, just inside, outside. And we had people from New Orleans already up in our audience that had already been displaced and were in the audience. And then that night we raised $30,000 just at the premiere. And this is a 10-minute film. Keep in mind, the film is 10 minutes long. And it took me 3 years to make a 10-minute film. So it went on to headline a bunch of nonprofit, annual nonprofits. And it really has screened still to this day. We have screened at colleges, middle schools, grade schools, and it's still to this day, it screens. So, you know, it's a timeless story. And it was really me stepping into my destiny is what it turned out to be.
I love that. And it sounds like it was kind of providence as well, right? Because it took you.
You mean prophecy? Is that what you're talking about? Or what'd you say?
Well, it took you 3 years to do it.
Yeah.
And then when you finished it in 2005, Katrina hit. And so it was like everyone was talking about homelessness. Everyone was talking about the devastation. And you have this beautiful 10-minute video of homeless people across the country. And so
it was ridiculous.
Yeah. And so
the timing of the universe was just lined everything up that I couldn't
exactly
smartest girl mode ever done. And so what it really validated for me was trust. The trust in our life decisions, and the trust in destiny, and the trust in instinct and intuition, you know, listening to yourself. And it really gave me license to go forward. And it also became a voice for me. You see what I mean? So documentary films back almost 20 years ago, were just beginning to be popular. And now, of course, documentary films are very in vogue, and it's a great genre for women directors for sure.
Right.
So yeah, it was transformational in so many ways, like so many things in life are. But I mean, you know, I've never been able to unwind myself from the storytelling sense. So
I love that. So why focus on women? Like why are they your passion? You said that you are a voice for women creators around the world. What does that mean to you?
Well, when I started with the homeless film, my first inkling was to do women that were homeless. But it turned out it was such a much bigger story than that. So the film is about sort of global homelessness rather than women. However, as I proceeded, and I am a woman, so as I proceeded, then I found that was my voice to support, mentor, full circle other women ahead of me and behind me, and just all of us together. And so many great stories of me working with women. But back when I was started, there was no internet connection to women in documentary film. So I thought, well, this is a no-brainer. So I set up a website, Women Documentary Filmmakers, you know, maybe 15 years ago. And now what we do is we highlight teasers or trailers for women filmmakers globally, all over the world, just to have a landing spot for their work. We also have a Facebook page, Women Documentary Filmmakers, that corresponds with that. So if somebody sends me their trailer, then I'll put it on the website and the Facebook page, because we're all one big network. You know what I mean? And it's just a place to honor our work and our voice, and we're all passionate about different stories.
I love that. I love that you offer them a place to a platform, really, for them to showcase their work.
A very natural outcome of what I was doing, that there was a niche and it didn't exist at that point. And that seems to be one of my things that I really like to do is lift up women especially
Yep.
creative women, because that's what I expect from myself. And you know, it's a great community. You know, women
I
love
love that. So you are
yeah,
like your daughter, because your daughter was like, go for it. And so
yeah,
you're telling these other women to go for it.
yes. So I've got some great stories connected to that. My very first intern, Morgan Dameron, who it was in high school at the time that I first met her. I was on the board of directors for Kansas City Women in Film and TV for about 5 years, and Morgan was our teen that won some
Yeah.
contest or something, and she went off to USC with a full ride and in film. And her freshman year, I think she reached back and said, "Can I intern for you?" And I'm like, "Well, I've never had an intern." Okay.
Right.
So,
What does it
Morgan,
entail?
yeah, I know. So Morgan came back and she interned with me that summer for Kansas City Jazz and Blues Past, Present, and Future. Of course, she grew up there, so it was, you know, a great fit. And she was fabulous. And you know, she came to the premiere when we had it 5 years later. And she's gone on to, she graduated from USC. She worked for J.J. Abrams for 7 years, and then she wrote and directed her own feature film, which we were executive producers of. And that film, Different Flowers, has screened all over the country at AMC's. So how lovely is that full circle of women doing what women do best? So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a great
beautiful.
story.
That's beautiful. What is she doing now?
She is, well, she's engaged to be married, so that's exciting. She's in LA and she's just doing more of the same, directing and writing
Yeah.
and just you know, making her voice with women. She belongs to the Alliance of Women Directors, as I do, I think, and a great network and resource for women across the world. So, you know, I just really believe in networks.
Yeah,
power
the power
and
of
networks
impact.
and resources. And, you know, we're all looking for visibility of our work. And so I'm really, it's really important for me to support others.
Yeah.
And because I've been fully supported in my life, and that's, to me, that's breathing. That's the same as breathing. So
yeah. So tell us about that trip you took throughout the 48 continental states.
yeah.
How was that? Like, what motivated that? And then what did you learn on that journey?
Yeah, another great question. So to back up just a little bit, when I was working on the homeless film, towards the end of it, I had been filming in Washington, D.C., and I heard some teenagers say that if every church in Washington, D.C. mentored or took care of 3 homeless, there would be no homeless in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
So I heard that, and I thought, well, God, that seems very doable. So I went back to my home church in Kansas City, and I thought, why don't we try to like start that and mentor a family? So I went to the local Salvation Army, which was fairly close, and I met with the people, and I said, our church would like to mentor a family, a homeless family. You know, it's a great platform for that. And they said, well, we don't really have a structure for that. We don't have anything really that we could do, but here's a woman you should meet. And they gave me a name of a woman, Stephanie Tillman. So I'm like, yeah, okay. So I called up Stephanie, emailed her, whatever I did, and I went to see her. And Stephanie and her family had lived in the homeless shelter for 4 months, the Salvation Army there in Kansas City, with her 2 small children and her husband. They were homeless. And by the time I met her, she was in HUD housing, or, you know, she was out of the shelter and in that transitional stage. So I met her sort of to interview for the film. But then when I met her, she showed me this vision board she had. And I'm like, wow, she's like super talented.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, and so I'm like, you need to meet my networks. So I rolled her into my Kansas City business networks, which were somewhat substantial in her regard. And I said, meet Stephanie. She's crazy, amazing.
Yeah.
So Stephanie and I formed a friendship that has lasted now 15 years. And she and I were just texting this morning. I hope she's watching this. And she, you know, has her backstory, like everybody's got a backstory, but I thought she was crazy talented. And since I've known Stephanie in 15 years, first of all, she's done all my graphic design work. Her husband did a couple of my websites, and she and I created the brand My Power of One together. So I knew after I did the homeless film, especially meeting Stephanie that this was mine to give birth to.
Right.
So Stephanie said to me one day, Sue, here's what you did for me. She said, you engaged with me, you believed in me, you inspired me, and you empowered me. And of course, I didn't intentionally set out to have those words come back to me. But once they did, I thought, wow, what if we were all intentional with how we proceeded through our life? How extraordinary would that be? So I had those seeds planted in me, and I knew for about 10 years that I was supposed to probably give birth to the brand My Power of One.
Mm-hmm.
And then about 6 years ago, Jay and I were in Paris for some reason. I can't remember what, our anniversary. I think it was an anniversary, 35th wedding anniversary. And I was in Paris, and the universe spoke to me and said, Sue, it's time. And I said, okay. I'm talking to myself, basically.
Yeah.
So I come back from Paris. I set forth, I'm very action oriented. I set forth, I have Stephanie's husband, Shamari, start the design work on my website. She does the design work. We come up with our first 8 words or so. She does all the shirts for me. All 40 words, 7 different sizes, Stephanie made for me in her garage, by the way, screen print. So she did the design work, her husband did the website, and she actually physically did all the shirts for me. So over the last 6 years, I've had this brand called My Power of One. So in 2015, we were living in San Diego, my husband retired. And we accidentally bought an RV. It was just like very whimsical and happened within about 2 hours. We bought this RV. And then we're like, so I conjure up this plan again very quickly that we're going to go on a 48-state tour. He's retired. We have an RV. This is the time. We're never going to be younger or healthier than we are now. So I'm like, take all the steps. And this is like, we buy this and bring this back to Kansas in October. And we leave in January. So we go from October to January. I have the thing brand wrapped. I come up with, the whole marketing for it and all of that. And we take off the first or second week of January. And we are gone 9 months, 30,000 miles, all 48 states. And we take our dog with us, our golden retriever. And so the 3 of us are driving around all 48 states. And I maybe have 4 or 5 sort of pre-planned ones that I've created with people, acts of kindness. But as we go along, we get some momentum and somebody says, oh, I'd like to do something with you. So as it goes on, we add a few more as we go. And it turned out we did drum circles. Have you ever heard of a drum circle?
Yeah. We
did drum circles for cancer. We did walks for cancer for kids in Long Island. We did books for kids in Milwaukee. We did Glamour Day for Women in Seattle. We did beach cleanup in San Diego. It was just surreal now that it's over. I look back at those pictures and I'm like, did we really pull that off? Did we do that? So yes, 9 months, 30,000 miles, 12 acts of kindness. And then that was in 2016. It's the year that we did that. So that was, that's just my life in a nutshell. Yeah.
I love that. So your husband, what did your husband say when you were like, we're going on a road trip?
He's like, tell me what to pack, what's he going to do? He's retired. So he's like delighted to be, free from his work responsibilities. And I'm seriously an adventurer at heart.
Yeah.
So, I kind of float through life a little bit that way. And, it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool.
Awesome.
But what we learned from it was, your question was, that we learned how much kindness and how much good is going on every day, everywhere in the world. And I'm the type of person that's what I notice. Instead of noticing what's wrong, what's bad, what's blah, 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 I only notice extraordinary, like you, like I reached out to you and that's just how I've trained myself to sort of live this life, is just see it's going on everywhere, every day, in every state and every country in the world by somebody. And to really to lift that up so others can see it was what I turned out to be able to facilitate.
Yeah. So, and there truly is more good in the world than not. Like,
of course.
Like people
always has been.
Yes, ma'am. People are doing amazing things. And the time that we're in now with the quarantine and COVID-19, like humanity.
So you've got time.
You've got time, right?
Yeah.
And
right.
humanity is rising up, like the creative beings that they
agreed.
are, the resilient people that they are. They're just rising up and doing great, good things in the world. And it's showing itself over and over and over again. It is so beautiful.
Yes, it is. So that was the tour, and we saw every. I'm getting echo. So we maybe I need to get closer. Take my earphones off. We saw every capital. We did a lot of national parks. Obviously met lots, and we mobilized hundreds of volunteers. We raised tens of thousands of dollars, and lots of fabulous photo ops. And our dog, now that our kids are gone, our dog, God rest her soul, she went to heaven last summer. She was our photo op. I mean, we'd have her stand in front of, different things and have her picture taken. And so, social media and the digital world has allowed us to, reach around the world and have a voice, around globally.
Yep.
So it's powerful.
Kindness is your jam, right? Kindness is your thing.
It's one of my many jams.
Yeah.
Yes, but yes, it is. Yes.
And so you're going to have a kindness summit coming up. So talk about that.
This year. Yeah. Yeah. So this last fall, just like I said, who do I want to be the second half of my life? And an hour later, I'm signed up for film school. I'm like, the brand needs a little twist. The brand My Power of One needs a little sort of adjustment and probably I needed the adjustment, but I just made the brand do it. So I'm like, I don't know what it is, but here, let me start writing and see what it is. So I was doing this post on Facebook. I'm like, now the brand is such and such. And all of a sudden it turns out that I've created a kindness summit. I'm like, I don't know where that came from, but I guess I'm having a kindness summit. So then I'm like, first day of summer seems like a cool day. June 20th. So like all within June 20th, we're having a kindness summer. So it just, that's kind of how I float through life. And we have intention to cultivate kindness and embrace the conversation and include as many as we can in it, because obviously there's lots of people like us that are doing it in the world. So one of my visions is to sort of circle us all together and just and inflate and and embellish the conversation, magnify the conversation, because we're already having it individually or within our peer groups. So what about if we take it around the world with all of us that are doing it together? And it's fun. So it's not like it's not proving any harm. It's just putting positivity into me, let alone the rest of the world. So so anyways, Kindness Summit, our first one, and we have Leon Lovothesis from the Kindness Diaries that's on Netflix as our keynote speaker. We were going to have a panel of people that are doing extraordinary kind things in their community or in their job, responsibilities. And it's scheduled for the 20th of June. We'll see how the pandemic moves the date. Right. But mypowerof1.com is the website, and we also have a Kindness Summit Facebook page as well, a landing page.
I love that. We'll post all of that in the comments so people can check it out. And so I love your spirit. I love your energy. I think you are doing beautiful and great things in the world. Thank you for helping women find their voices, giving them platforms, and then also just for all the kindness that you're putting out into the world.
It's just a pretty easy gig. And it's like, it's really just self-expression. And then when you go to bed at night, you just take a big, sigh of relief and thank you for the day. Gratitude is a big part of it. And waking up feeling grateful and going to bed feeling grateful, and just inviting your peer group along for the ride, which, everybody does with everything that they do. I'm just very intentional about how that walk is.
Yeah. Well, it's a beautiful walk for sure.
It is. Yeah. It's a good one. especially having two daughters. I know I'm always a role model for how aging goes. I'm in my 60s now, And in many regards, for all of us, life begins every day. You know, we've got a new opportunity to recreate and recraft every single day of our lives. And one of my visions now is to craft a school for female directors, women filmmakers, because I notice that it doesn't exist in the world, and therefore it should.
Yeah.
So take the experience and the networks I have and start a conversation about more women elevating their voices. So it's exciting. Life is exciting for me. Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that you say life begins every day.
It does.
Every day you get up, you have a new start.
All the days of our life. Yep. Yeah, I mean, think about me at 48 going off to film school and creating a new persona or a new avenue for voice, which is powerful, incredibly powerful, what we've been able to do with some of the films that we've made. And when I was in San Diego for 5 years, we did the 48-hour film challenge and created the first ever all-female cast and crew. We had 15 actresses and 25 women altogether that worked on this film called Downstage, and first ever all-female cast and crew in 48-hour challenge.
Wow.
Film challenge in San Diego. And how awesome is that? I mean, you know, those are just legacy sites. So
yeah, that is beautiful.
Yeah,
that is beautiful. Well, Sue, thank you so much for your time. It has been a pleasure chatting with you and learning about your story and your journey and all the things that you've done these past 18. We didn't even start the first 48, but the past 18 years, how you reinvented yourself and decided that you're going to go for it and that you live out loud every single day. It's truly amazing.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Well, this has been Make Kind Loud, conversations that turn up the volume. This week we spoke to Sue Vicory, and she says life begins every single day. So you have the opportunity to recreate yourself every day. So who do you choose to be? This has been Make Kind Loud, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Bye-bye. Thank you, Sue.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.